Hi, this is Gary Dranow from Park City, Utah, and the Gary Dranow Show, proudly broadcasting to you from Radio Evolve Rocks in Santa Barbara, California. Listen more and evolve. Hello, everybody. This is Gary Dranow from the Gary Dranow Show, and today we have a very, very special guest, a rock and blues legend, Gary Myrick. And my show will talk about Gary's musical history. Let's go back to his childhood and moving through things like Gary Myrick and the Figures and Havana 3 a.m. and so much more. Gary, you're one of the most interesting cats I have ever had on my show, with a career spanning, I believe, 4 decades. Is that right?
Decades, dude. Yeah, well, that's very kind of you to say. I sure appreciate that. Yeah, I started playing guitar when I was 10 years old, and it was really due to my mom. My mom said, you're creative. And of course, I'm 9. Okay.
Uh-huh.
She said, you're creative. You need to play an instrument. And I went, okay. I was very amenable as a child. I go, oh, okay. I didn't know. I'll do anything. And so I said, okay. And I said, but what instrument? She said, guitar. I love guitar. And I went, okay. And that was it. And then I started, going down that road, and I went down to downtown. I'm born and raised in Dallas, Texas. And so I would go downtown to a fantastic guitar shop called McCord's Music in Dallas, downtown Dallas, and it was really cool. And I ended up buying some really old Strats there later on. And as I grew, I was getting better guitars and things like that. And I bought 2 different times 1958 Stratocasters at that shop for like $400 each.
I've got a similar story. I bought my first 1962 Stratocaster from Norm at Norm's Rare Guitars.
Norm's a
And
buddy of mine. Yeah, I love Norm's.
yeah, and we're going to talk about your performance on Norm's Rare Guitar with your 12 string and House of the Rising Sun. But since we're talking about your childhood, so you grew up in Dallas,
Right.
and was your family musical?
No, not really. My mom, though, was kind of she did some modeling, so she was like artistic. She was an artistic thinker, and she did some painting, which I thought was really good. And in retrospect, she was kind of copying other painters, but she was really good. And she was a sweetheart. And she had 3 boys. I was her firstborn, and so she she was hilarious, really. When I was a baby, she made everyone that came in the house wear a surgical mask.
Ha!
And I get a kick out of that, because she was like, "Oh, don't mess with my baby. Don't be sick. Don't be a weirdo. Just come on in. But you got to put this mask on, because you can't give him any diseases." Anyhow,
She was ahead of her time with the airborne germ thing, huh?
she what totally, totally. And she would dress me in like amazing little tiny suits and stuff.
Ha!
And she had a beautiful 1950s Buick with those big holes in the
Wing.
hood.
Oh, did they have wings too?
They didn't
Fins?
really have wings. I wouldn't call
Fins, I
them
meant. Fins,
that,
I meant.
fins. They didn't really have fins, no, but they were beautiful cars. And of course, I'm just a child. I'm just kind of, I'll do anything, whatever you tell me to do.
Well,
And
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit.
yeah, go ahead.
Since you brought up cars,
Yeah,
you've got a very cool 1951 truck, I believe you're sitting in.
you are correct. It's a 51 Chevy 3100, which is considered in the world of trucks a iconic body style in truck history. And I I I bought it about 6 months ago, and the thing that's really cool about it is it's custom. So it's a 51. The body has never been painted. It's the original paint. So it's probably sat in a field. I mean, the body did sat in a field for at least 50 years, 60 probably. So it's got the patina. Let me see if I can just show you. You can see the patina of the body,
Yep.
and it's got all that surface rust, which I absolutely love. And I call it God's paint job. Um, and you can see the top, everything. Here's the door. Can you see that?
Yes, it's Haunted Texas Old Guitar Shack, established in 1951, the year the truck came out.
Yeah, and I call it Rumbler.
Rumbler.
Rumbler. So
Did you
anyhow,
was it running when you bought it, or did you restore the engine?
no, it was there was a guy kind of in the Midwest area who builds these. So he takes old truck bodies and puts them on a bit of a better frame. There's a C10 truck by Chevy, also like from they started them in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and this is a 90s frame from a C10, which is a better frame, a stronger frame.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a 350 engine. So it's a bigger engine. The original engine was a six-cylinder. This is a V8 basically.
A big block.
I don't know if it's a big block. It sure fits in the under the hood really well. Anyhow, it's it's not not everything's brand new, but the engine runs really well. It also he puts in power steering,
Aha.
power power brakes, and automatic transmission, and which they never had that. And of course, I've had a bunch of trucks and a bunch of hot rods and different things, but and motorcycles, but uh, the uh, the thing that I was attracted to, because everything I've always had, I'm a shifting fool. I mean, I no problem shifting, or it's no problem at all. But I thought, wouldn't it be nice to just chill out and cruise one-handed on the steering wheel? And so anyhow, it's power steering, power brakes, so that's disc brakes really, and and then a larger engine, and then automatic transmission. So it's a mellow driver. It's like I just want to be mellow and cruise down the road, and it is that. And then I put in, I added some stuff, like there's an air horn that sounds like a train, that sounds like a semi truck. It's the loudest horn on the earth. I mean, it is insane. But I do that to like hot rods and stuff, that I have that done. I don't do it. I just dream it up, and I always do it. It's a safety factor, but it also looks really cool. I mean, air horns look cool, I think, but that wasn't the idea. Just to get something that looked cool. Here's an air horn.
Yep.
Can you see? Can you see it?
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. So there's that air horn, and that is louder than. And here's the one on my 29. See, there's another one over there.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I always do that because, you know, especially with the 29 Ford.
You want to let people know you're coming.
Well, people, it's first of all, the 29 Ford is low. You can see right there. That is a low vehicle.
It's a roadster, right?
It's a roadster. It's a Model A roadster body that came out of the factory when Henry Ford was alive. That's
Wow.
I mean, that's a 29 body. Okay. So that concept of that Henry Ford was alive and well when that came out, and I just love that bit of history. Of course, it's a hot rod, so everything, it's a new engine, You know what I mean? It's a hot rod. It's a custom car.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah.
so anyhow, I don't even know what I was talking about. Where were we going with this?
We were on air horns and the
People back up on you. See, you're so low to the ground
they don't
that
see you.
like some la 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 la. They're just backing up. Hey, baby, push that button.
Huh?
Blah. I mean, it's insane. Now the air horn on the Ford is loud, and I used to think that was loud, but this thing on the truck is insane, and it makes people wake up and start saluting immediately. So it's a safety factor, but they also you got big trumpets on the side of your vehicle. It looks cool.
Hey, Gary, don't let me forget, at some point in this conversation, we got to talk about Harley Davidson motorcycles.
No problem.
All right, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes,
what
sir.
were your very early musical influences?
Well, when I first started, Dwayne Eddy. Yeah, the twanging Dwayne Eddy.
Absolutely.
Twanging guitar. I love Dwayne Eddy. Was my very first guitar worship, to where I went, wow, I love, I like surf music. Of course,
how about Hank Marvin and the Shadows?
The Shadows. Apache, forget it. That's an incredible song.
Yeah, me and my group play that, actually.
That's a great song. I love that song. I love that kind of stuff. So that was my earliest. And when I went to my very first guitar lesson at age 10, my guitar teacher was tuning the guitar. Of course, I didn't know anything at all. So I was just like I was enamored with every detail. And he was tuning the guitar by going to the octaves of the low E and the high E, going ding, 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 trying to make sure that they were in tune together, even though they're octaves.
Yep, double octaves.
And I thought that was incredibly cool. And it didn't really take any talent to do that. He's just tuning the guitar. But I thought it was amazing. And then I went home and I went dong, ding, dong, ding, dong, ding. And I tried to write a song from that. So so the first lesson, of course, I didn't know anything, but I was trying to create something from day one. And I thought that was kind of cool in retrospect.
Okay, we're going to have to take a 2-minute break, a good stopping point. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Gary Myrick and his fantastic stories, cars, and everything.
Ain't nothing but a hound dog woman. Yeah, snooping round my door. You're wagging your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more. Yeah, you thought you was a high class. I could see through that. Yeah, you thought you was a high class woman. I could see through that. You know that I love you, baby. I'm your real cool cat. Ain't nothing but a hound dog woman. Lord, you're snooping down my door. Ain't nothing but a hound dog girl. Yeah, you're snooping round my door. You're wagging your tail, but I ain't gonna feed you no more.
We're back with Gary Myrick, and right now we're talking about guitars. We were talking about his car collection, which is really, really cool.
I never call it a collection. It's only 3, but I
Well,
guess it is.
Most people in the world do not have a 51 truck and a 48 Roadster, so it sets you
29.
apart. 49 Roadster sets you apart, man. Um,
My wife hates me for buying this stuff.
my wife is the same way.
She hates me.
My guitars.
She goes, "No, you bought another one." See, and I never tell her. See, they just arrive one day. I can't tell her, or she'll start yelling at me.
Yeah,
So,
I got the same deal with my wife.
so what the thing is, it's the philosophy I believe and I've heard, which I utilize. It's easier to apologize than to ask permission. Don't ask permission because they'll say no. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't spend that money. And then, but if it just arrives, it's too late. So then you say, "Well, I'm sorry, honey. It's part of, a man needs a hobby. A woman needs a hobby. People need hobbies. And I love vehicles of all kinds. So sorry, honey, I got to do it. You knew that when you married me. Sorry."
How long you been married, Gary?
Oh gosh, we got married in the early 2000s.
All right, so you've been together for 20 something years.
Yeah, that's right.
I have had 4 wives.
4.
4, and my 4th and last one, my wonderful wife Elizabeth. We just celebrated in January our 21st anniversary.
Dang, congratulations.
Yeah.
So you're in the same, we both have the same first name, and we're in the 20-year marriage reality.
The thing.
The thing. We're in the thing.
So as you were coming
And my
up,
wife's a musician too, by the way.
Oh, really? What does she play?
She's a graduate of Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Oh, that's heavy duty music theory and technique and
correct. A lot of knowledge involved with that.
Does she play an instrument, or is she a singer, or both?
Yeah, she plays guitar and piano.
Wow.
So she's mainly a teacher these days. She did work on some early 80s type albums, but she's really a teacher. So she teaches, on Zoom, and she also sometimes goes to people's homes. So she's the real deal.
Do you guys write music together?
No, she won't listen to me.
and we're going to talk about your EP that's just come up a little bit later in the conversation.
Sure.
Which
Blues Trash.
Blues Trash. What is that about? Sinners?
We're all sinners, baby.
I thought your EP was named something like My.
That was another EP that I did this last year also.
Is that one with the Jimmy Reed cover on it?
No, that's the new one. Has
Blues Trash.
Has Big Boss Man.
Big Boss Man from Jimmy Reed.
By Jimmy Reed, which is a fantastic song. And Big Boss Man's getting airplay like worldwide right now.
Well,
there's quite a few songs off of Blues Trash are and I actually cut Blues Trash a little while back, but I never put it out. I hadn't put it out really. So my manager really loved the record. He goes, "God, that's a great record. We got to put it out." I go, "Oh, okay." And so it kind of came through the back door of like, oh yeah, I just had it done, and I produced it. It's a lot of guitar stuff. It's a Telecaster that I used mainly on this one.
You know, I
And
thought it was listening to it.
yeah, it's a
Um,
telly.
we're
And
gonna
I have
get
a
back. We're gonna get back to this in a few minutes. Well, 20 minutes or so,
sure.
because I want to go through each song. Um, and I'll just say this for all my guests that Gary's playing style is very unique. Once you hear it, you'll know it's Gary Myrick. And he's an authentic bluesman without a question. So, Gary, what was the music scene like in Dallas as you came up? And the second part of the question is, tell me about your first bands and kind of in chronological order.
Well, uh, Dallas was a really good place to start growing up playing music. And there was a lot of stuff you could go out and listen to. And I was also going down to Austin from time to time. And Austin was the real Austin. I God bless Austin, but it's kind of been wrecked by population. It grew. A lot of tech companies moved in there, and all of a sudden there's a million giant freeways. And there never was. I moved down there. I got hired. I'm kind of moving forward a little bit.
Cracker Jacks.
Jack is with a K, Cracker
Okay.
Jack with a
Yep.
K,
Yep.
and I was hired
To
by
replace
Uncle
Stevie.
John Turner, who was the
Uh-huh.
drummer, the original drummer from the Johnny Winter Trio, the first
Uh-huh.
Johnny Winter Trio, and a great guy and a great blues drummer, really great.
Was
And
it through him that you got the jam with Johnny Winter?
yes, absolutely. After I'd been in Cracker Jack for a while, Johnny came to town, and then I ended up going on stage with him and jamming because we were all hanging out, because he was, friends with Uncle John and Tommy. Tommy Shannon was our bass player at the time, and so that's was my connection with Johnny Winter, and we jammed and
So tell us who you replaced in Cracker Jack.
uh, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah,
Little
Stevie was
known
playing
fact.
guitar, and for some reason they fired him. Now in his book it says something like he just wanted to go solo, but that no, they fired him, and which is fine. I mean, God bless him. And Stevie and I knew each other later. We became, real well acquainted. In fact, he came to my hotel room and we played a gig together out in the Midwest after we were both signed to Epic Records. We were both on the same label, and they were doing it as Texas guitar players or something. I don't know what they were doing. They were advertising it as, but we had a good time, and he was a sweetheart of a guy, and God bless him. I'm so sorry that he passed in the way he did. Um, and I knew his brother a little bit.
Jimmy.
Jimmy, I've known Jimmy, for since when I got in Cracker Jack. Cracker Jack was like the biggest band in Austin at the time. And this is like 1970, 71, maybe. And Uncle John had come into a place called The Cellar in downtown Dallas, where I was playing like 5 nights a week. And I played,
You were the house band?
I was one of the bands, but we were the biggest band in at The Cellar. Other bands were playing too, and they had house equipment. It was totally, it was the craziest place in the world. Every bouncer had a gun on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was wild, dude. And in fact, somebody banged their gun on a table and a bullet went right
Ricochet, huh?
over my head.
Oh my
And I
God.
said, "What the man? Excuse me. Excuse my language, but I said, what are you doing?" I said, "Put that gun away, man. Your bullets are flying. Are you lost your mind?"
Uh-huh.
And he put it away, and he went, "Oh, I'm sorry." Well, yeah, you better be sorry. People, you could shoot people. Be careful.
Yep, yep.
It's a gun.
And I bet there were big caliber guns back then too, huh?
Well, no telling. I didn't even
Yeah.
pay attention to the
Yeah.
caliber. I just it's
You just
watch
heard a
watch what you're
wee.
doing. Watch what you're doing.
Yeah.
So anyhow, Uncle John Turner came in that club to see me play, and then came up to me at a break and asked me to come replace Stevie. And Stevie hadn't made any records or done anything really. He was just another guitar player in Austin that was, of course, very good, but and I didn't really know what was. I just went. I knew they were making the most money, and they were doing original material, original blues rock, which I liked and wanted to, learn more about and get down to Austin and be, kind of figure that out. And so I moved down there and went down there and jammed with them. And I brought a rhythm guitar player with me. Of course, I could have played, solo, but I had a rhythm guitar player in the band that I had in Dallas. His name was Mark Stimson, and I brought him with me so I could just concentrate on playing lead or doubling the rhythm or whatever it was. And so we moved into a band house, and it was in a great part of town, and that was probably from the 1920s house. And we started playing, and we immediately were gigging, and they were gigging all over Texas at the time, and it was original material, which I wanted. I didn't want to just copy. I didn't want to be copy guy. I wanted to, because I was doing all original material in Dallas, my own material. And I wanted to continue that with anything I did. So that's how it started. And I played with that band for at least 2 years. Then I realized I had to get out of Texas to make some records. I wanted to make records. I didn't want to just, there weren't independent labels. There weren't really any Texas labels. So I thought, well, what, New York, Los Angeles, London? London's far. Didn't really have the money at the time to move over there. I probably would have really enjoyed that because I ended up living there in Havana 3 a.m. for a while. But uh, that was, of course, many years later. And so I moved to Los Angeles just because it was warm, really. And,
Okay.
and then I started playing around town little by little. And then all of a sudden I got signed to, what was considered a big record deal back then.
Which label was that?
Epic,
Epic. Okay.
Epic. And that was
And
it was a cool label.
who were some of
And
the other artists on Epic when you got signed?
Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Michael Jackson was on there. Uh, in fact, I think he made Thriller and all that stuff when he was on that label. And and then Stevie was on that label, and I can't remember I want to say Jeff Beck at one time was on that label, but I could be wrong about that.
Mentioning Jeff Beck, uh, who were your biggest influences that helped you develop this wonderful style you've got?
My favorite guitar players of that era, and still were three guitar players. Now I still love Dwayne Eddy to this day and always will. Uh, for that kind of twang in the twang thing, which I love, and in kind of spaghetti western, which I utilized uh, in Havana 3 a.m. because that was something that I already had done and played around with and knew how to do. And so that was attractive to some of my English guys that I worked with. Um, And so I'm sorry. What did you just ask me? You said, "Oh, my favorite guitar player was Jeff Beck," because
Okay.
I love feedback. I learned about doing feedback, and also he was based in the blues, and I loved the early Yardbirds stuff,
With Jeff Beck,
and Jimmy Page,
Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, I believe, right?
Eric Clapton also.
Yeah.
That was kind
Uh,
of short-lived, I think, but Jeff Beck
yeah.
was what I was really into. Jeff Beck and Jimi Hendrix were my top guys, and Robert Johnson, going back to
The 1920s
not
Delta music.
yes, 1930s actually. Sorry to
Yeah.
mention that, but
No, that's fine.
in the 1930s he recorded the majority of his only album in Dallas, Texas. Downtown
Okay.
Dallas, Texas, and I've been in that room and where he recorded that. It's in downtown. It's an amazing vibe in there. It was just him playing basically in a hotel room, and they recorded that. I think there was a guy. I think it was a guy. I want to say from was it CBS Records that had gone through the South documenting old blues and trying to document it to put stuff, put some records out. And that's how Robert Johnson, made that album. And he had made
And
the album in Dallas, but he also recorded some of it in San Antonio, Texas. But the majority was Dallas, Texas, which was my hometown, which I, kind of worshiped that. And I still do. That I'm very grateful that was, part of a legacy of Texas,
do,
which
do,
was
do
good.
you play fingerstyle as well as with a pick?
Oh, absolutely. I do. In fact, I go back and forth all the time.
All right.
I play with a pick, and then I take my pick and I put it under this finger, well, this is my left hand, but on my right hand, like I will be playing with the pick, and then I'll put the pick underneath this, and then play finger, and then go back to the pick, back and forth, here and there. Depends on what I'm doing.
Got it. That's quite a skill. Hybrid picking with a pick and then moving
Thin
that.
fingers.
I use my middle finger to hold my pick, and it took me quite a few years to get fast enough to go from holding the pick in my third finger, hybrid picking, and then back to the pick position. And yes, this is my left hand, not my right. Okay, we're gonna have to take a 2-minute break, a good stopping point. We'll be back in 2 minutes with Gary Myrick.
Tex pawn shop and the tremolos packed up the truck and they hit the road with out-of-tune guitars and a stand-up bass. They left this one was down for some wide open space. They went to the city with a painted bass drum. Tex pawn shop and the tremolos come. He played slide guitar like ringing a bell, like gun-toting mamas on the road to hell. Tex pawn shop and the tremolos, 3-man band with the bloody nose, rockabilly boogie with a country rose, graveyard cowboy, here's how it goes. They booked a gig out on the strip. The chicks were dancing and the guys were hip. An A&R man said, I like your style. He said, I'll make you famous, and Tex cracked a smile. Tex text phone shop and the tremolos. Three-man band with the bloody nose. Rockabilly boogie with the country rose. Graveyard cowboy, here's how it goes.
Tell me about the Black Queen.
The Black Queen. The Black Queen was a cool club. I liked that place. That's where I that's not kind of. I definitely jammed with Cracker Jack for the first time at the Black Queen.
So that was a prominent club at the time, and that was
It
in
was.
Austin, right?
That was in Austin, yes.
Yeah.
So we went down there in the afternoon, and they let us, just kind of jam around. And so it was me, Tommy Shannon, Uncle John Turner, and Bruce Boland was the vocalist, who's also passed away. Bruce has passed away. Uncle John has passed away. God bless them both. They're gone too soon, in my opinion. But I wasn't really doing drugs, and I don't do any drugs or drink. And
Well, good for you. You're gonna live long, man. That's good.
I'm just trying to hang out and not be sick. And so that's kind of the way I do it these days. And I never really did a lot of drugs. I was talking to my wife recently, and she said something about, because I snorted heroin one time with Johnny Winter, because he was snorting some heroin, and I thought, well, I'll just try that. I never did it, so I tried it with him, and he was all worried about it, like I was going to get immediately hooked, and I didn't. In fact, it made me itch. It made me itch,
Well,
and then I never did it again.
But I'm so glad you did not get hooked.
No, nothing happened. I just thought, oh, that's not so great.
Okay.
So, but no, I've never been like a super drug taker. But I did enjoy smoking pot for a while in the early 2000s. And then I stopped completely everything again. And so the majority of my life, there's been like no drug, and these days, no drugs, no alcohol, period.
Well, this is why you look so good at, let me see here, 51.
Let's not go there.
Okay, that's not good. When did you discover the blues, and how prominent was it in your early playing? And let's talk a little bit about Albert King.
Oh, okay. Albert King, great guitar player. Love the tone of Albert King, and got great.
Explain to my folks what he did that was so unusual.
Well, he was playing with a flying V. That is unusual.
Yep.
For a blues player, that was unusual for the times. But his tone was great for the blues. And it was.
And didn't he play upside down and backwards? So the high E string was on the top, and he pulled down on it rather than bend up on it.
Oh, I didn't know that he pulled down on it.
You didn't know that he played upside down and backwards?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
No.
he was left-handed, and he just switched the guitar over, and the
so he did a Hendrix thing.
Well, but Hendrix had regular stringing with the
but he flipped it around.
Yeah, he flipped it around and played with the high E string on the top, or
I met Hendrix. I met Hendrix when I was 16, dude.
Really?
16. I was 16 years old. I'd gone to a show, and excuse me, I'm kind of moving around. I'm sitting in this old truck. Anyhow, I went to a show in Dallas. I'm just a kid. There was a bunch of other kids at the show. And after the show was over, which was great, all the kids went, "Let's go meet the band." And I just went, okay. And of course, I don't know what we think we're going to do. What are we going to do? "Hi, we love your music." I mean, it's kind of nuts, but whatever. let's go.
So what
So
was he like? What was he like?
so let me paint this picture. I go to the Hyatt Hotel with a bunch of kids at 16 after a show of Jimi Hendrix Experience. We're all running around the hallways with our heads cut off. We don't know where we're going. We don't know where anybody is. We don't know anything. I can't believe we weren't kicked out immediately. But those days, security was not happening. So we're all running around. I get separated from a lot of the kids, and I'm on my own, and I'm just leaning on a wall in a hallway with a million doors going to rooms. I don't know anything. Totally by accident. The door right across from me opens up and Jimi Hendrix steps out.
Oh my God.
And I go bang. And I said, you know, really nice to meet you. I just love your music. I was at the show. It was really great. And he was the sweetest, nicest, most mellow, very cool guy, not putting on rock star airs, like just a good guy, just a nice guy. And
Interesting.
and treated
Not
me like amazing. For he could have just said, "Oh, I gotta go" or something. He could have done anything, but he
he spent
didn't.
some time with you.
He spent about 8 minutes talking to me by myself, nobody else around, no one. And it was amazing, and I'll never forget it. And I've told the story a bunch of times because it's so incredible and inspirational. The thing that was so inspirational was how kind he was to a young 16-year-old guitar player that, he didn't know from Adam. He could have easily not talked to me and or just said, I gotta go or something, but he didn't. He just
Uh,
talked, and he looked every bit as iconic and dressed incredible. And, also a fun fact, the Jeff Beck Truth album, I could hear in the background playing like on a record player, maybe a little portable or something that he had in his room. I could hear it in the background. The Truth album, the first Jeff Beck solo album, was playing in his room.
all right, cool.
So anyhow,
Before you, I had Jeff Skunk Baxter on my show, and
I know Jeff quite well.
oh well, he told me very similar things about Hendrix. So it's true. He was a nice sweetheart guy.
A sweetheart in every way.
So let's see here. After the Cracker Jack, Lee, how did you get to She Talks in Stereo? I'm just so curious about how that song came out with all your other stuff being really down the blues lane, and here's an 80 new wave song kind of.
Well, of course, I wanted to be signed to a label. And out in Los Angeles, like punk and new wave was really cooking along. I'm still a rock and rock player. I was always a rock player. And, my early days of loving the Yardbirds and Jeff Beck and then during the punk movement and the new wave movement out of England, I was interested in just because it was experimental and rebellious. I liked that, and so I was kind of doing some of that kind of stuff, and I was writing all this music in Los Angeles. Excuse me, and it just She Talks in Stereo was just one of the songs that I wrote at the time. And then I started playing it live. I was doing all my own material around Los Angeles.
What were the clubs you were playing in Los Angeles? The Troubadour?
I was playing the Troubadour, the Whiskey. The Starwood was a real big one at the time, and I had a really big stage and great sound. And that was I attribute that club as to where I got signed out of,
Uh-huh.
because
Okay.
record companies in those days
A&R
were
guys would go there, huh?
and our guys were everywhere trying to sign the next big thing, because punk and new wave was on the radio, and it started coming from England first, really, and which I was
And
attracted to, and then
then the New York Dolls, right?
yeah, New York Dolls came along. That was, but that was really after, and well, of course they were also glam, which had come also originally from England. So like Bowie, Mark Bolan, stuff like that was glam, had a glam overtone to it, and the way that they were dressing and things like that. So the New York Dolls really took from that, in my opinion, and but I liked that, and I just appreciated rock and roll rebellion in general. So
Uh-huh.
anything that had a rebellious tone, I was attracted to. Blues has a rebellious tone. If you're calling yourself Howlin' Wolf, you're already rebellious.
Yep,
You're
yep.
you're immediately rebellious, and your name is Muddy. Yeah, oh, I'm going to call myself Muddy Waters. Oh well, you're already a badass just by saying that, you know. And so a certain rebellious tone fits into certain things in rock and roll and blues, and I like that. I still like it. I'll always like it. Um, that even enters into my car thing, and clothing and haircuts, and it's all the same energy, and it's just kind of an artistic choice.
It's your artistic style.
Yeah, and it's just something I appreciate in other musicians and other people in the arts, from filmmakers to painters to, I mean, it's a consciousness, really. And I like that. And so uh, it was something that I felt close to because I like that in Los Angeles. So I was doing that with the very first album that I made that had some.
Was this Gary Myrick and the Figures?
That was Gary Myrick and the Figures, which had a song on there that to this day is probably one of my favorites, called Ever Since the World Began, which was super tough, wild, dangerous. I wanted things to have a certain danger to them,
And an edge to them.
an edge to them. So, and of course, as I go along, I don't want to just stay the same forever. I'll change things up and I'll work on things, and that's why 40 years later or whatever it's been, I've utilized the rebelliousness that I love in blues, and also put that into with utilize my guitar playing and things, all that, all of that is a consciousness to me. So I experiment in all those areas.
I recently saw a video of you at Norm's Rare Guitars playing a 12 string and doing House of the Rising Sun.
Well,
Um,
it's funny. I kind of wish I'd done a different song, but that day I had bought a 12 string from Norm, an acoustic Gibson,
was that the one
and
you were playing?
I I think it might have been. I can't remember what I was playing. I think it was, because he, of course, he wants you to play, a guitar that either you're buying or you want to buy. And Norm's a great guy. I've known Norm a long time. I bought some guitars from him from the years past. In fact, he had another shop that was a very small little shop. That's where I first met Norm.
In
And
Van Nuys, right?
I think it was in Van Nuys,
It was
and I
either
went
Van
there.
Nuys or Reseda. I can't remember which.
I can't quite remember, but I've been there, and I bought a square neck dobro from him a long time ago
Ah,
because
and
I play lap steel.
I was just gonna say I've seen pictures of you playing lap steel, which is a whole nother thing. We're gonna have to take a quick 2 minute break. We'll be right back with Gary Myrick.
Cheers.
The river I travel on is sad and true. Can't walk on the water, baby, without you. The river is a vein of blood flowing from my soul to you. You quench my dreams and you smooth my skin. My eyes are tired from this world of sin. Love me forever, pray, hold my hand. The cat's in the kitchen and the rain is on the land. The river I travel on is sad and true. Can't walk on the water, baby, without you, yeah.
This is Gary Myrick. And once again, you're on the Gary Dranow Show. Peace, brother.
Peace and love,
Peace,
children.
love. Yeah. Do you have kids?
I do not have kids, but I consider my 5 dogs as
Your
my children.
Yeah.
They're my children, buddy.
I don't have children either, and my 3 dogs are my children. And
See, it's the same.
Same thing.
Well, what are the odds? You have no children. I have no children. We have dogs, and our name's Gary.
Yeah. Well, and there's more. Hendrix was first. It was my story is I was in my mom's car. We were driving up Ventura Boulevard in 1968, and Crossroads with Cream came on the record. And by the way, hardly anybody knows Crossroads was written by Robert Johnson.
Which is ridiculous. Everybody needs to know that.
Everybody needs to know that. But anyway, so Crossroads came on the radio, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. And I said to my mom, "This
And it was
is what I."
And it was it the live version?
Yeah, and
that's
the
the
live
best
version
version.
was recorded in 1968 on my birthday, March 10th.
Cool.
So, anyways, I had my mom take me to Ernie Ball Guitars on Ventura Boulevard, and 30 minutes later, we walked out with my 1967 Stratocaster, which I still have, and a Champ amp, which I still have.
Amps are good.
Yeah, but
They're small, but they're good.
Yeah, no, Champs are great for recording. But very shortly after that, I got turned on and hooked on Jimi Hendrix. Axis Bold as Love, Are You Experienced, Electric Ladyland. I mean, hopefully you'll tune into some of my live playing and you'll hear my Hendrix influences. But
You know, I recorded some of my 4th solo album at Electric Lady in New York.
wow. And I was going to ask you, what studios have you recorded in?
Oh, some incredible studios. I recorded a whole album with Havana 3 a.m. with the bass player from the Clash, Paul Simonon, in Tokyo,
Yeah.
Japan. We went
Yeah.
there to record the album.
You got a record label in Tokyo, Japan,
We
didn't
got
you?
a record. We got signed to a label there, but they said we could keep the masters and license them to any other label outside of Japan.
That's very unusual. And when was this? What year?
Oh gosh. I want to say around 99. I mean 2009 rather. No. Yeah, no. No, nine it was 1999? No.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know.
even if
I
it
don't
was
know, dude.
1999, very unusual for a record label to let you keep the masters. That's really either very good business on your part or just dumb luck.
Well,
It's
we
incredible.
had a female manager, Trisha Ronayne, who ended up being Paul Simonon's wife.
From the Clash.
Yeah, from the Clash. He was, and we were able to kind of go out and play immediately because of the Clash connection, uh, even without an album out. So we had already been playing live with no album out because people were curious of what we were doing. And we had mixed spaghetti western, surf, punk, uh, and kind of south of the border uh, approaches. And spaghetti western was a big influence in that band. Um, so we were looking for a record deal, and then we ended up licensing that to IRS Records,
Okay.
which
Which is
was
a big
Miles
label.
Copeland, Miles Copeland's label, who had signed the Go Go's and a bunch of other people. Um, and so we had already had the record; it was done. So we just did a new album cover and put it out at that time. And then we went on to we started touring around America and Canada and Europe. We went all over Europe at the time, and we went back to Tokyo, and I ended up playing on every single island in Japan
Wow.
with Havana 3M, and that's a very kind of cool
And just
legacy.
so my listeners are sure, Havana 3AM was a band of yours, right?
It was a band that I started with the Clash bass player, yes, and a guy
After
named
the
Nigel
Figures.
Dixon. Nigel Dixon was the singer and rhythm guitar player.
Okay.
He was a rockabilly guy that was big in England at the time and had opened up for the Clash many times. So Paul and Nigel, and they also were motorcycle riders, and I'm a motorcycle rider, or I was. I stopped this year uh, because I've done it all. I used to ride like a 1946 Harley. I've had a bunch of Harleys and just Triumphs, but I kind of decided this year I'm going to concentrate on my hot rods and stuff.
Uh-huh. Tell me, we're running out of time real quick here, Gary.
That's cool,
And
dude.
to all my guests, Gary has agreed to come back on the show because we have so much left to talk about. It's incredible.
I got some
Tell,
crazier stories even than I've told you.
you and I will talk off line, and you'll tell me about these so I can make notes so we can talk about them.
Let
Tell
me
me
just throw
about
this in.
yeah.
I was blessed by Chuck Berry by accident. Blessed. I'm not going to tell you how. I'll explain that later. And then I also went to Freddie Mercury's house for his birthday
Wow.
in London. Crazy. So I'll tell you those stories. And there's other stories too that are nuts.
Tell me real quick about Guitar Talk, Love, and Drums.
Well, it was my third solo album. It was really an EP. And I wrote that song with a drummer named Curly Smith, another person that I met in Texas, who was playing drums with Jay Ferguson from JoJo Gunn. A lot of people don't know that band name, and he was originally the singer from Spirit from the
Right,
60s. And
right.
he's a great musician and just a great, super good guy. And we wrote that song together. Guitar, talk, love, and drums.
Uh-huh. And that was pretty damn popular, wasn't it?
It was pretty damn popular. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was on the radio, and it also got the video got nominated for best special effects on MTV at the time.
Right, right. So this was in the 80s or later?
80s.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Um uh I have in my notes that the latest approach to recording was an EP called Some of All My Sims, produced by Robert
Margalef,
Margalef,
who who
who
was a
did
big
Stevie
Stevie Wonder
Wonder.
guy,
Yeah, Stevie Wonder. Um,
who I
uh,
also played guitar in a studio for Stevie
did
Wonder.
you?
Yes,
That is huge, man.
I know, I couldn't believe it. It's just
Um,
me and him in the studio, nobody else. I mean, the engineer, me and the engineer called me up on a Sunday, said, "Hey, could you come down and play guitar for Stevie?" And I went, "Huh? Yeah,
yeah, I'll do it.
yeah, I'm on my way. See ya."
Ah. What is your single most favorite guitar?
Well, that's a hard call. Depends on what we're talking about. Are we talking about electric,
Yeah, let's
acoustic,
talk about electric blues, electric rock.
Stratocaster? Because
Uh,
I like utilizing my whammy.
uh-huh,
I like utilizing feedback.
uh-huh.
Uh, and I can do that the most with a Strat. Now, also, the tones of the pickups is very good for, uh, certain classic sounds,
Yeah.
uh, in blues and in other things, in rock. Um, so I'd say, Strat is really and it has been my number one electric since I was, now 17.
Well, here's a real quick story. I and one of the biggest mistakes in my life, I had a mint 1955 Stratocaster. And I have a broker that works with me for finding me guitars, and occasionally I'll sell a guitar.
Sure.
And he hooked me up with Carlos Santana.
Uh-huh.
And he bought my 1955 Stratocaster about 5 years ago, and told me that he was going to put out an album with just the Stratocaster. And I don't know if he has or not. I haven't found it, but selling that guitar was probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life.
It happens, dude. I'll tell you, you want to hear a heartbreaking story real quick? I had
Yeah.
three 58 Stratocasters stolen from me.
Oh my
One
God.
in Austin, one in California, and one in Dallas. Stolen from me way back then, in Havana 3M.
Did you
My
ever get them
original
back?
guitar, I played all the guitar on Missing You and that whole album with John Waite and all that stuff. Uh,
The John Waite story. He took credit for your music, didn't he?
well, yes, he did. Well, I gave it to him. I said, "Look, I'm going to go make another solo album. You can call this album," which is the dumbest thing I ever did. "You can call this album a John Waite album. It's okay."
Because it was a band you and John Waite put together,
It
right?
was a band. It was never a John Waite solo album. Never.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
had never been intended to be that. And I just was nice enough to give it because I had points on the album. So I already owned a piece of it, and I had written 4 songs. Me and John had written 4 songs together. So I had songs and I had points. So I felt like, oh, well, I've been paid and I'll be paid in the future. So, and I want to make this solo album, which they didn't want me to do. And of course, nobody knew we were going to have a #1 song. Who knew? No one. No one knows. The record companies don't know. Musicians don't know. Nobody knows ever. So anyhow, I said, oh, you can just call it a John Waite. It could have easily gone nowhere for all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
So like a doofus, I gave it to him. Of course, he never tells that story. He wants to act like it was all him, but I'm sorry, it wasn't. No way. No way. But that's okay. You know,
The
I'm not.
truth has come out, John Waite. The truth has come out.
Yeah, well, so he knows it's true. So whatever. It's cool. Whatever.
Yeah. Life happens, especially in
Life
music.
happens to those that are just getting on with it.
So you've recorded 10 solo albums, and I think
13.
13 now. Okay.
13. My newest one makes it at least 13, maybe 14. I don't know.
Yeah. And you performed on the late night show, David Letterman,
With Havana 3 a.m.
with Havana 3M.
Yeah.
And you've also done sync licensing, I believe, for film and television.
Yes, I have.
So
Yeah.
tell
Film and
me a little
television.
tell me a little bit how you got the relationship with the music supervisors to get your music into film and television.
Well, a lot of it comes from being on the radio. And somebody's like CSI, you know, those
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
those detective police shows, called me and wanted to put She Talks in Stereo in one of their episodes. And, you know, they paid well because it was a big show. And I went, great. Yeah, you can use it. You just
Dick
got to pay.
Wolf,
Just
right?
pay me.
Right.
That's all.
Is CSI Dick Wolf? I mean NCIS Dick Wolf. I don't think so. But everything else is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you rather than you trying to get a relationship with a music supervisor, they reached out to you.
Yeah. Well, in that particular case, yes. Yes.
Well,
And I had a director approach me wanting me to do a soundtrack way before the whole transgender thing came about. And he was doing something about transgender. And this was a long time ago, way before the word transgender didn't even exist. And asked me to do a soundtrack for his film. And I love films in general. And he was a great guy. And it was called Creature. And I never see it was on HBO. I never see it these days, but it probably exists somewhere on the internet.
Oh, I'm sure.
And the music to this day, I played all the instruments myself, and I did a lot of stuff that I think to this day sounds really good and really still sounds current in its own way.
It's fresh.
It's fresh. It's really fresh. And I did some things to where I was looping some stuff, and I really had some great fun doing it. And I just played everything myself.
So you're a multi-instrumentalist.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I can definitely like on the Some of All My Sins record that you're talking about that has
GLORIA. I'm the man. Death Letter.
Yeah.
And your song, which I think is totally cool, Ode to Robert Johnson.
Ode to Robert Johnson. Yeah. I'm waiting for some filmmaker to use that song in a Robert Johnson documentary.
All right. Well,
they should. They should. It's one of the better songs I've written in a long time. And there's an acoustic version of it too that I think's even better than that one.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
when we do our next show together, you'll have to give me the track so I could play it on the show.
Sure.
And it was a very interesting and enjoyable conversation with you, Gary.
Great talking to you, Gary.
I'm so excited that we met and hope to have you back. And with that, we're going to have to say adieu, goodbye.
And Gary, thanks for your service in Vietnam, buddy.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I had no choice.
I'm glad you survived.
I'll tell you the story here in a second. All right, over and out. Gary Dranow Show.